to the Game Week 20 deadline live stream. Hope you're all doing well. The first live stream, I think, of the new year. So I am buzzing to be getting going with this one today. And it's worth noting, anybody that's been waiting in the chat, I do apologise. I feel like I say this every week. I am late. I should never set myself a start time that I never can actually make. Running around like a madman this morning, walking the dog in the frost, looking at my watch thinking there's no world I am making 8:45 start. So 8:52/53, I apologise. I will hopefully make up for it during this live stream. And I appreciate anybody that's been sitting around in the lobby waiting for me to go live. But I think everything is set up now. So we should be all smooth now for the next hour or half, I think. We won't be going all the way up until the deadline, unfortunately. Jeez, just made myself jump there. But we will try and go as long as we can on this stream. So as always, let me know in the chat if you are tuning in. Where are you tuning in the world from? I want to see some familiar faces in the chat. I can already see JP and Mortal Technique, Jousey, Charlie, Cheeks to Sam's, Charlie, Alpha. Hope you're all doing very well. And let me know what your plans are going into Game Week 20. I've covered off quite a lot of mine in the transfer plans video and, of course, in the team selection video. But I will obviously go back to my team and go through it. But the whole purpose of these live streams and these deadlines are to try and help you guys with any last minute decisions that you have, as well as obviously go a bit of back and forth with some of the news that we've had over the last 24 hours or so, because we've had some big news from Spurs, which looks like they've had a bit of a sickness bug throughout the squad. And if Spurs were already in a bit of a problem, they look like they're even bigger problem going into today's lunchtime kickoff, I believe. So anybody that owns Newcastle assets right now looks like you could be in a good spot. So JP is already asking, should you sell Jota? If so, who to? Gordon, Diaz, maybe. So I think if you sell Diogo Jota to Diaz, I think you're selling a minute's risk for another minute's risk. So I would just sit tight with Diogo Jota in that situation. Now, do I prefer Gordon over Jota? Yes, I do. But do I think it's enough to justify the transfer? I think it's a luxury transfer for your teams. If you have no other problems, then yes, I do think it is a good move to go to Gordon because the fixtures long term. Do I have any fixtures up here? No, I don't. I will get some fixtures up for you in a minute. I do apologise. More technique. I am doing well, my friend. Hope you are as well. Hope no one's had like the frost where they are or snow. Let me know if anyone's had the snow. Charlie, good morning, my friend. Jousey's asking, start Murphy or João Pedro? And that's a really tricky one this week because João Pedro, we always have that narrative in our minds that he actually plays better in the bigger games. But I do think Arsenal are just one of the best defences in the league. So I don't really feel that confident starting someone like João Pedro against one of the best defences in the league. Murphy, on the other hand, has been on fire. I think the problem with Murphy is we know it's going to be a 65th minute, 70th minute substitution like it has been recently. Do I think that was better than João Pedro? I probably am going to say yes. I am not that bullish on João Pedro, even though I know others are. Cheeks is asking, morning, Nacho. Happy New Year, my friend. Happy New Year to you as well, mate. And obviously anybody that is tuning into this live stream. Sam's is asking, hey, Nacho, start Ahmad or Munoz? Now, I probably would go for Munoz. I think Ahmad, one, we don't even know if he starts. I think he probably does. Two, we don't know where he's going to play because we've all seen the narrative that's been painted online. And it is true. When they do play the combination of Dalot and Mazraoui, they literally haven't scored a goal. When they've played a Dalot-Ahmad combination in the wing-back areas, they have actually had a bit of success. But does that mean that Ahmad is going to be directly involved in those goals? We don't really know the answer to that. So I think I probably would lean towards, controversially in this situation, Munoz, because I'm a Chelsea fan. I think we're in a little bit of a bad spot right now. Had the news that Fofana is out long-term, Chile is going to be out. So it looks like it will be a combination of Colwell and Tosin, which is fine. But I think there will be opportunities for Crystal Palace in offensive areas. And one thing I've always said about Chelsea is we never seem to be able to defend the back post for some reason. Whenever you watch us play, the goals that we concede for the last few years have always been balls at the back post that have been scored. And who crops up in those areas? Munoz. So I would not be surprised if Munoz was to get on the score sheet against Chelsea. Charlie saying I fell asleep. I was close to that. I was close. Alpha saying tuning in from Kenya. Alpha, thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. And FPL Lard from Crewe, Cheshire. Never been there before. Need to put that on the list. Charlie's tuning in from New Zealand. Jess is asking, Ahmad to Sarr for risk Liverpool postponed. Ahmad to Sarr. So I don't think the entry point is really this week, even though I'm not bullish on Chelsea this week. I don't think either like buying a Crystal Palace asset is amazing. I think rolling the transfer is the best thing. Now, of course, we've seen the news regarding it. Let me try and get it up a minute. Give me 2 seconds. Because anybody that doesn't know right now, there is a little bit of worry. Let me get this up here for you. So anybody that follows Benny Blanco here, and I have waited for a while, I can't lie, to see whether this is FPL Boona impersonating Benny, but it looks like it is legit. He posted this yesterday. So anyone doesn't know, Benny, I didn't know he had anybody in the know, but he was the first to know about the Everton-Liverpool game being postponed. For those that don't know, Benny co-organised the game week 39 charity matches, posts terrible dad jokes, but he is a funny guy in real life, I do promise you. And with Benny, he obviously lives in Liverpool. He's had some in the knows regarding the Liverpool-Everton game, and he posted this up saying that there is going to be a meeting on Sunday morning to decide whether the amber warnings that have been issued for Sunday are going to impact the Liverpool-Man United game. Now, I, for one, think this is just a classic case of do nothing. You cannot predict the future. If the game gets postponed, it gets postponed. I just wouldn't really read too much into it. Some things you can't control, unfortunately. I'm just going to cut out the bottom of this thing because it is being a bit annoying, that graphic, sorry. Let me put it up like that. So I think it's very, very simple here in this situation. I would just not overthink it. I would just let it be. If the game gets postponed, it's going to impact a lot of people. If you're in a good position where your bench can allow you to accommodate those that are being obviously out, like a Trent, Bruno Fernandes, Salah, to name a few. The big thing that you need to remember, and this is going to be really important, and something that you definitely can control, is who you put your vice captaincy on. So I really would recommend putting that vice captaincy on a player that, one, doesn't feature in this game, and two, ideally probably plays today. So for me, I am putting that on Alexander Isak because he has a favourable game against Spurs, and I just think that's a no-brainer for a vice captaincy this week. Just going to try and have a sip of this coffee. I have stupidly put it right to the top. I've been spilling it as I ran up the stairs, so I need to just take the head off this a minute. Delicious. So that's the heads up on the Liverpool game. Do not be caught out by it, but I wouldn't overthink it either. We don't know what's going to happen over the next 24 hours, and the deadline, of course, is today, which is not ideal in preparation for it. Charlie said, I'm considering starting Hall over Konsa. What's your thoughts? No, I still would go for Konsa myself. I think the fixture's really good for Aston Villa. I think Leicester were actually quite favourable. So, it is what it is. But I think Hall could do well. But I always fancy Spurs for a goal. I probably would still go for Konsa myself. Alva saying, will Kai Havertz play today? Unfortunately, don't know on that one. Now, with Arsenal playing, we need to remember that their game is first and foremost going to be featuring in the evening game against Brighton. So we're going to get no news from the in the knows. If you own Kai Havertz, I probably would keep and hope for the best. However, if you're in a position right now where you don't own Alexander Isak, then Havertz to Isak is one of the easiest moves that you can do this week. Now, what I want to quickly touch on as well is going to be a little bit of news regarding Spurs this morning. Now, I want to just quickly put this up because, firstly, Spurs are playing, of course, Newcastle, and Spurs are in a really bad spot, and Newcastle are in a fantastic place. So I think we all knew that having Newcastle assets this week on paper sounds fantastic. Now, for anybody that follows this account, Spurs in the Know Hub, they basically just have people in the know, and they tier them based on their reliability. So they have tier 3, which is a bronze, tier 2, which is silver, tier 1, which basically, if you're a tier 1, pretty much all the time, the news that they are saying is correct. And they have posted in the last 9 hours, I believe, stating that there has been a sickness bug throughout the Spurs team. And the most recent news from this tier 1 source is that Fraser Forster is definitely out. And we need to remember also that Vicario is out, which is not ideal. Sorry, I'm just going to cut out the bottom of that as well. So they're going to have no Vicario and no Fraser Forster. I have no idea who the other goalkeeper is. So let me check on Fantasy Football. Who the hell is the other Spurs goalkeeper? If anyone knows, let me know in the chat. Who is the third choice Spurs goalkeeper? It is a guy called Austin or Whiteman. So who knows which one of those is going to be starting. We already knew that Romero and Van der Ven were out alongside Udogi, but we also now know that Ragusin and Archie Gray have had the bug, but it looks like they will play. So it's not even like they're fully fit. They're going to play because they basically have to play. Maddison and Son are likely to be left out of the starting lineup as well, alongside Basuma. Like, let that just sink in right now. This Spurs team are effectively going to have neither number 1 or number 2 in goal. Their left back, centre back out. So they're going to have to play their backups and they're going to be ill. No Basuma, no Maddison, no Son. I have no idea what this team is going to look like. I imagine it'll be Sarr in midfield. They will probably play, obviously, Solanke up top, Kulusevski in an 8 role, Brennan Johnson off the right, Werner off the left. I mean, if Spurs win this game, then it is what it is. But we always have to play FPL with the knowledge that we do have. And based on this news right now, if you are looking to bring in Anthony Gordon, it looks like a fantastic time to do so. Spurs were defensively weak as it is. Them removing these players from the team just means it could be another fantastic day to own Newcastle assets. So do have that in the back of the mind if you are looking to make those moves in your team. I see here a few more questions. FPL Lard has done Rodgers to Diaz. Don't mind it. I do think Rodgers will be back on the menu around game week 23. But between now and then, of course, he's suspended in game week 20. And he has 2 tricky fixtures after that. So I don't mind the move, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is another push towards Rodgers in a couple of weeks' time. And Charlie saying, consider I've covered that one off. Purple Snake saying, is Isak a better captain with the rumours that only 7 Tottenham squad players trained yesterday instead of Salah? Yeah, that is the thing right now, obviously, which I've covered off. However, I will say this. I just can't look past Mo Salah right now. I think Mo Salah is still the option because Man United themselves have not looked good defensively at all. And I see we've got a super chat here from Boy in the Autumn, as always, a regular on the stream, and as always, posting these super chats. So I really do appreciate it, my friend. I hope you've had a fantastic Christmas. I think we've spoken since Christmas, but hope you've had a brilliant new year as well. Again, very generous with the super chats here. So let's try and help you as best we can. And let me know, obviously, mate, in the chat, what is your overall rank right now? Because I know you were doing fantastic. So let me know how you are getting on. So Alisson in goal, brilliant. Gabriel, Mikalenko, Hall as your back 3. Now, Mikalenko not amazing, but can we ever rule out an Everton clean sheet in any game? No. Then we got Palmer, Salah, Semenyo, and Ismail Assar. That's great. Isak, Wood, and João Pedro up top. Bench obviously looks a bit of a bad spot right now with Fabianski, Timber, Bowen, and Greaves. So I think the big thing, 33k, that's fantastic. So I think the first thing we always have to ask ourselves is there the possibility of you rolling your transfer? Now, we've spoken about the possibility of the Liverpool Man United game getting postponed. It is what it is if it happens. I wouldn't be making transfers to protect yourself from this game. I would just accept what will be in this spot. Obviously, if it does happen, then you are in a bit of a tricky spot because you will have no Alisson play, no Mo Salah play, which is not ideal. But I just don't think we should be overthinking it right now. So in terms of your team, I think the back 3 obviously picks itself in its situation. And I think it is a good enough back 3 to justify just keeping this week. In terms of the midfield, I like it. I think obviously the situation right now with Palmer, Salah, Semenyo and Sarr, great long-term holds. I think Semenyo could be on the chopping block. And your front 3 is an ideal front 3. So I think the big question right now is, looking at your bench, is Bowen. I think that's the big problem right now with your team because you know that is going to be a long-term issue. Now, if we are going to be considering replacements for your team, let's just get at Fantasy Football Fix right now to take a look at some of the long-term fixtures. Now, obviously with Jarrett Bowen's price point and the money in the bank, you effectively can get anybody sub 10 million, I believe, which is great. Now, when we look at the fixtures here, you already have two cheap enablers in Semenyo and Sarr. So I wouldn't be recommending a player that is also cheap. I really would be looking for yourself to be bringing in a player that is in that price bracket between 7 and 10 million, just to keep that team structure. When we look at the fixtures coming up, because of course it is really important to note this, I don't think there's any Villa midfielders we can consider. Rodgers is the only one. I wouldn't really be going there. Fulham, I don't love any of the midfielders. Arsenal, again, I personally don't love the midfielders, unless you do have that feeling that maybe Martinelli is the one to go for. I don't love Odegaard. Crystal Palace, you already have coverage. Everton were avoiding like the plague. Now, the big thing, of course, is going to be the situation with Liverpool. We know there's going to be a double game week around 24 or 25 based on the predictions of some content creators out there. And I do trust them. Those are going to be Planet FPL and Ben Crellin. They're not nailing it down, but they are saying it is likely situation. So we do need to take that into account. So one move that you could do is a bit of an aggressive move and go for Bowen to someone like a Luis Diaz. I do like that move, but of course you are taking a slight risk of minutes, but you are capitalising on that potential double game week in 24 or game week 25. Outside of Luis Diaz, I think it would be pretty clear for me that it would be Gordon. Now, when I actually filter this for game week 21 onwards, you can see Newcastle jump up a little bit. It's because it's viewing the Spurs game this week as a tricky game. But I think based on what we're knowing right now, the Spurs game is actually a really favourable game for Anthony Gordon. So it very much comes down to, for me, your Bowen replacement is either Gordon or Luis Diaz. And I think this is going to come down to a case of how risky you want your play to be. I think if you want guaranteed game time, I would just make the move to Anthony Gordon and get it done. Otherwise, if you want to be a bit aggressive, I really do like the Luis Diaz play. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section, mate, on that one. I would boringly go for Anthony Gordon just because I know his minutes are going to be solid. And it also keeps the money in the bank, both of these players, to maybe allow yourself to get a third Liverpool player in defence if you want to. A Konate might emerge as an option, or you have that money in the bank to get a Trent in your team if he just looks irresistible for the foreseeable future. Let me know any thoughts, mate, in the chat. Obviously, don't send another super chat because that is generous enough as it is. And obviously, in the situation with people talking about the Spurs news, I probably would agree that it probably does sway a Lewis Hall start in your teams. So what I want to do quickly is get up my team. Selfishly get up my team, but maybe it will help some of you guys as well. Let me just make this a little bit more of a pleasurable viewing because there's so much dead space on this screen right now. I apologize. Let's just narrow that up and drag that down. Okay, so quick recap on where we are right now. This is how we're looking for game week 20. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my camera because I look very strange. So that is how we are looking for game week 20 right now. I'm going to roll my transfer. I really feel like when I make my team, I always think to myself, can I roll a transfer? Because that is the first question that we need to ask ourselves this season with the ability to roll up to 5 free transfers. That's the big thing we need to remember here. And it's really important this season because we can also carry transfers through wildcards. So later on in the season, if we can get ourselves in a position where we wildcard, bench boost, and also have 5 or 4 free transfers in the bank, that's fantastic. So I think for my team right now, any chance I can roll the transfer, I am going to do so. And when I look at my starting 11, sells, I see a lot of people going towards him. Obviously, I'm not going to be selling him. A back three of Trent, Gabriel and Anderson. And I've spoken about how I'm bullish on Munoz for attacking returns against any of our fullbacks on the back post. Cucurella has the tendency to sleep. I think there could be opportunities for Munoz. So the fact that I'm benching him this week means I don't have to make a defensive transfer. In terms of the midfielders, yes, Semenyo is a problem, and I do think that he is going to be a transfer out. But as of right now, at home against Everton, I've checked out some of the Everton correspondents in the FPL community, and even though a lot of managers are thinking that Everton are actually doing well defensively, they actually think they've been quite lucky at times. Pickford's pulled off some worldy saves, and defensively, they actually haven't been as good as others do perceive. So I think Semenyo is absolutely fine for game week 20. And would I be surprised if Bournemouth walked away with a 2-0 win in that one? I wouldn't. Salah, Palmer, Gordon. Obviously, I've had Gordon for a few weeks now, so he is one of the few players I've actually been ahead of the curve a little bit, which I'm really thankful of. And then, of course, Bruno Fernandes. This is the big one right now because, of course, with Bruno Fernandes, there are different directions that we can go at with his price point. I have 2 free transfers and 0 in the bank. Now, when I actually look at the games for game week 20 in isolation, because even though a transfer is a long-term move, I also want to bring in a player, if I'm going to sell Bruno Fernandes, who actually has a good fixture in game week 20. And when I look at the teams right now that I don't have any ownership in, now, I'm not going to be buying any Spurs, and I already have the best Newcastle options in Gordon and Isak, so that game is irrelevant. Rodgers suspended for Aston Villa, so I'm not buying Aston Villa. I have Bournemouth, and I'm avoiding Everton. I don't have Crystal Palace, but do I feel compelled to sell Bruno Fernandes for a Crystal Palace asset this week? For me, the answer is going to be no. So, and another reason why I want to also avoid that is because I want to also consider the fact that maybe I can get Semenyo to Ismaila Sarr rather than Bruno Fernandes to Ismaila Sarr. So I don't feel like I need to do it this week. And Chelsea midfielders, I'm not touching anybody outside of Cole Palmer. City, I would love to be confident enough to go there, but I'm just not. And West Ham are off the menu. Southampton, Brentford are a total avoid right now in my eyes. Brentford's fixtures are very middling, and I already have Visser. Brighton, I'm not touching. Arsenal, I've spoken about for the last few weeks how I do not rate Odegaard as a pick. Thankfully, that is coming to fruition, but it doesn't rule out him returning in this game week. And then the other games on Sunday. Fulham against Ipswich. I don't want Fulham assets. Don't want to touch Ipswich. The only player that I really have considered potentially is a Luis Diaz. Now, I'm going to be honest. Controversial here because everyone's going to shoot me down in the chat, but I don't think Liverpool have been as good as others make out defensively. I really don't. Now, they are playing one of the worst form teams in the league right now in Man United, so I'm not sitting here saying to you that I think Man United are going to put a few goals against them. But I don't think Liverpool have been great defensively. I think they've been naive at times, and where I do see opportunities is going to be on that right-hand side, and Robertson is always ropey in these games, always at risk of giving away a penalty. Now, with Quansah playing alongside Virgil van Dijk, I know Kanate is back in training, but I'll be astonished with the injury record that he does have, that Slot chucks him in straight away in this game. I don't see that happening. And I think Quansah alongside Virgil van Dijk with Trent on that right, I don't feel confident that there is going to be a clean sheet for Liverpool this week. Now, I get it. There's going to be a lot of Liverpool fans in the chat right now that are going to be saying you're a fool, Nacho. But I don't hate Bruno Fernandes this week. I think Liverpool have been naive at times defensively. And I do think that whenever Robertson remains in this team, there is the potential for a penalty. So because of the lack of options available, I'm happy to keep Bruno Fernandes. And the thing that does help is that coming into game week 21, looking at the fixtures, what are the standout fixtures? Well, regardless of what you think about Man United, that is still a standout fixture at home against Southampton. And having Bruno Fernandes for that is a brilliant differential. Other midfielders that I would like to own, I don't see many. So I'm going to keep Bruno. And if I'm going to keep Bruno, I've always said to myself, if you own Bruno, you start Bruno in any of the fixtures. So I'm going for Bruno Fernandes and I am benching João Pedro. That could come back to haunt me, but I've seen too much from Arsenal defensively to know that they are an elite defence. And even though Liverpool are also a good defence, why would I start João Pedro over Bruno Fernandes when I deem Arsenal a better defence? So I am very content with this team. Salah with the captaincy, Isak with the vice captaincy. Let me know your thoughts in the chat, guys. I'll be very, very interested to know. Chris, Happy New Year, my friend. Andy, hope you are doing well. I would be interested to know who you would start. This is who you would bench, by the way. Now, don't be swayed by what I said. Have your own thought process on this one. So please don't go off what I said, because of course I am going to be biased based on my own narrative in my head. But I always like to, on these streams, when I have benching dilemmas, kind of put them out there so that if it does backfire and João Pedro scores a brace, I can look back and say to myself, was my thought process at least clear? And maybe you guys are going to say I'm a maniac, but I think my thought process is, I'm happy with it. I can sleep at night with the thought process. So that is why I'm content with this team, and I'm content with starting Bruno Fernandes. I'm not sitting here thinking that Man United are great. By all means, I do not believe that. But I just I'm happy with starting Bruno Fernandes based on what I've seen from Liverpool over the last few weeks. Boy in the Autumn has gone for Gordon. Yeah, I think based on what we're seeing with these potential Spurs news, I think it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely fine. Exclusive, oh no, Real Life Demon is asking, rate my team, please. Straight away, obviously, Flecken will be your starting goalkeeper. Concert, Williams, Castagna, Mikalenko, Greaves. Defence is in real problems there. I'm going to be honest. I think you need a strong premium defender in there. Salah, Mbeumo, Eze, Rodgers, Murphy. Fine. But again, the lack of premiums in this team is really scaring me. And the reason being is because you've got the most premium forward ever in Watkins, Haaland and Alexander Isak. Now, this is the beautiful thing about FPL this season. So many different ways to play it. And I'm not going to sit here in any moment and say to you that that team is a bad team. Because if I start to say that and say to you, why have you not got Palmer? Why have you not got this? Then we're all floating towards the same direction. And this is the great thing about this season, is there are different ways to play it. Look at your front line. You got Watkins at home against Leicester, and you got Erling Haaland at home against West Ham. That is a fantastic team this game week. And with Cole Palmer going away against Crystal Palace, who is going to be the counter premium, I think you've got a brilliant team for this week in isolation. Now, do I think longer term there could be problems in this team? Yes. But look at that front line. So in terms of selection, I think it's quite clear who you should bench. Obviously the Brentford number 2, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it. The one beginning with V, Vlamarson. I can never pronounce it. In terms of your backline, I would be benching Greaves, and I would be starting Castagna, I would be starting Konsa, and I would be starting Williams. And of course, you'd be benching Rodgers because he is suspended. Salah, Mbeumo, Eze, Murphy. Real Life Demon, please make sure you do tune in to at least my video next week or a live stream, because I'm very excited to see how that team does this week. I love it when I see teams that are completely different. And what an unbelievable front three that week is. This week is Watkins, Haaland, and Isak. That's magic. Absolute magic. Considering Raul or Isak for captain, who would you pick? If it's a debate between the two, then there isn't a debate in my eyes. It would be Alexander Isak. Dara saying, should I start João Pedro or Konsa? And should I bring in Gordon for, or someone around that price for Bruno? Which would you give me? 2.5 in the bank, or should I just hold on to Bruno? I have one free transfer. Okay, so I'm going to pop up maybe this. Yeah, we're going to pop this up. So I put this up in a previous video about some hot topics, and I just want to quickly rattle through this a minute in terms of the middle section. So you have to remember that sometimes it isn't just a case of, is one player better than the other? We also need to remember for ourselves, what is the purpose of rolling a transfer? Now, in your position, I always think about Fantasy Premier League in certain ways. So if you're in a spot like myself, where last week I had one free transfer and 0 in the bank, and you have players that are almost glue players. So, for example, Trent, Gabriel, Gordon, Palmer, Salah, Isak, you're very much locked into a team here. So if you have one free transfer and 0 in the bank, then your flexibility each and every game week, if you keep making moves, is very limited. So the reason why I say that is because you're not in that spot. You got one free transfer, which is limiting, but you have that money in the bank to allow you to be flexible with your team. So do I think Bruno Fernandes to Gordon for this week is great? Yes. And do I prefer Gordon over Bruno Fernandes as an option? The answer is going to be yes. So I'm not against that move. I just want to say a reason maybe to roll the transfer. Now, we need to remember there is going to be a double game week coming up in potentially 24 or 25. It could be later in the season, but there are strong reasonings to suggest that 24 or 25 are ideal times to do so. So we need to remember that. So rolling your transfer towards this position can be beneficial, because if you don't have 3 transfers, then it can allow you to at least get there if you need to. And of course, the other reason being is we have the assistant manager chip coming in game week 24. Now, again, you play the chip how you want to. Some managers think that if the double comes in 24-25, they will use the assistant manager chip for that. But with all this uncertainty right now coming up, I think when you can look at your team and say to yourself, there's no desperate transfer, I just want to make a transfer, that is enough of a reason there to roll the transfer, because there is enough reasons to accumulate transfers in the bank. At the start of the season, there was no reason to do so. Be aggressive, target players that are kicking off. I think now there's a reason to actually accumulate transfers in the bank. I see we've got a super chat here from Sin. Very generous, my friend. Thank you so much. Have Trent, Gabriel, Vandenberg. So you have Trent and Gabriel. Would I do Vandenberg to Vardiel for a hit? So I love Vardiel for this week 100%. And when we bring up fixtures for Man City coming up, West Ham's great. I don't love Brentford away. Ipswich, I think I don't mind at all. Then, of course, you've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle. So I think that looks fantastic for this game week in isolation. But beyond that, I don't love the Vardiel pick as much, because Man City, even when they're fit and firing, aren't great for clean sheets. Then we put them into the form that they're in right now. It doesn't look great. So what I have to say on the counter to you is, who are the other defenders in your team? Don't put another super chat. That's generous enough as it is. Just let me know who your other defenders are, because we need to decide, do you need to really make that move? Because you are upgrading a budget defender to a premium defender, and I just don't know if I love that structure of your team right now. But I also want to say that it's quite difficult to give advice in that situation when I don't know the context of your team. Justin saying, what's your plan with Vissa? I also have him, and I'm sure about the next few fixtures after Southampton. Okay, so Justin, I'm going to be honest with you. I might be a little bit negative here. I think Brentford get beat this weekend, and I really don't like Vissa as a pick this week. Like, do I not like him enough to sell him? Obviously not. But Vissa's returns away from home are absolutely pony. Like, he doesn't return away from home, and I don't care who the opponent is. I have zero confidence on Vissa returning this weekend. But is that enough to sell him? Absolutely not. Now, when we look at the fixtures coming up, like, I actually am currently starting Vissa in 21 at home against Man City, because I actually think that's a great fixture for Brentford. I think it's an opponent that's going to leave space behind for them to run into. Man City are really, really exposed right now. So I would actually view, weirdly enough, this as good as 20. So I think for the next 2, Vissa is good. After that, you'd argue that's great. You'd argue that's great. You'd argue that's great. You'd argue that's decent. So my thought process right now with Vissa is keep for the foreseeable future, and then decide, is there a forward that's emerging that is just absolutely essential? Because right now in my team, Isak, Vissa and João Pedro, I'm not that desperate to sell any of it. So I would say keep Vissa for now, and I would even consider starting him in game week 21. Bench João Pedro or Enzo this week? I would bench Enzo of the two. I think Enzo was fine, but a penalty taker for Brentford would get my pick over Enzo, even though I think Arsenal are an elite defence. I wasn't as bullish on Enzo as maybe some others, but I also understood why people were going there, and we've seen enough that there is good opportunities for him to get into the box. Jonas says, sell Odegaard to Gordon this week, given the Spurs news or roll. This feels like a very, very luxury move. Now, do I prefer Gordon over an Odegaard? Yes, I do. I do prefer Gordon over Odegaard. Anyone that's been tuning into my videos for the last 2 weeks, ever since the Saka injury, you'll know that I have been so against the Odegaard move, because even though Odegaard could become great, we never saw it, and we haven't seen it since the injury. So the reason I'm saying it's a luxury move is because you're still selling a potential penalty taker in the Arsenal team, and I mean, you're selling Odegaard with then Spurs and Villa coming up, who defensively are pretty woeful. So, Jonah, I would say to you, look at the context of your team. Does that additional transfer in a future week benefit it? And if the answer is yes, and I think it will, I would probably say roll, because I think it's a very luxurious move. However, if you were in a situation where you were sat there with 3 or 4 free transfers already, I personally would pull the trigger on that move, yes. Timber to Hall, only if your squad is so bad that you cannot start 3 defenders this week. Otherwise, I think straight away, Timber's suspended for 20, but then he's great from 21 onwards. So it's a very luxury move again. Daniel saying, Hall is keeping a clean sheet. You've heard it here first. Daniel, I would not be surprised at all with these news. For anyone that's tuning in, that is wondering, there has been a lot of news about a sickness bug that has broken out in the Spurs camp. They've had problems. They've had problems as it is Spurs. Then you chuck into the equation that Fraser Forster is out. They're going to be playing Dragishin and Archie Gray, who are both ill, but they're just going to have to play. No Maddison, no Son, no Basuma. Put that alongside Vicario, Udogi, Van der Romero. It could be a bloodbath. It could be a bloodbath. Start Munoz or Ahmad. I would start Munoz. I would start Munoz. Munoz, Collins, Bruno, Iwobi. Play 3, please help. Well, you have to play Iwobi with the home fixture against Ipswich for sure. Collins, it's a better fixture than that of Munoz from a defensive perspective, but Munoz offers so much more. If I had to play 3, I would play Iwobi, Bruno, and I would just play Munoz. I just don't rate Brentford defensively at all. Mbeumo versus Luis Diaz versus Eze versus Sarr. Difficult one for me to analyse because, look, do I prefer Eze over Sarr right now? No, I prefer Sarr. Do I prefer Luis Diaz over Mbeumo? I'm going to say yes, I do. Sorry, I just broke this little toy that I got for Christmas. My mum bought us, I don't know if they're like stress toys or something. I'm not too sure. But we had to build them over Christmas and I brought it back with me. This little bad boy. And a panda somewhere. I mean, they're kind of cool. Shit, sorry. Right, what else have we got in here? FPL Yellow Army in the chat. Hope you're doing well, mate. Make sure you guys follow him over on Twitter as well, for sure. Morning fan, would you buy Robinson, Castagne or Anderson and sell Timber or Semedo? Can only afford Robinson if I sell Timber. Okay, so let's get the fixtures up a minute. Fulham's fixtures are decent. However, do I think it's a guarantee they keep a clean sheet in 21 or 22? I personally would say no. I would have Castagne over Anderson myself. And do I think Robinson... So I think Timber has value still in this Arsenal team and with the fixtures coming up. So I don't see enough of a reason to do Timber to Robinson, even though I think there is high upside in this week in isolation. So I probably would say, to strengthen your team, Semedo, because of the fixtures being so damn tough, to a Castagne would be my preference than Timber to Robinson. That's my view on that one. And guys in the chat, if you have thoughts on that, do let us know. I'll be interested to know which one you prefer. Why don't you have Mbeumo over Bruno? Chase saying, sold Mbeumo a few weeks ago, and I'm not going to be looking to go back there. Seri saying, hey bro, start Matoma or Strand Larsen? I would start of the two. Who would I start of those two? Probably Strand Larsen. Probably Strand Larsen. But I don't love it. I don't love it either. João Pedro concert to start. That's hard. Because Villa got such a favourable game, but some would argue Leicester offensively have been okay, defensively terrible. And Villa are bad defensively themselves. I probably would still go Concert, but I know a lot of people would, most people would say João Pedro on that one. Keep putting your stuff in the chat, guys. I apologise. I've just missed something on my Patreon, so I just got to quickly answer that. Give me 2 seconds. I do apologise. Just going to quickly answer this one. Sorry, guys, just answering that. And apologies. Sorry, guys, this is terrible viewing. Give me 2 seconds. I'm sorry. Cool. We are back. Submit edits saying Jackson. Thank you, by the way, Immortal Technique for moderating that. Jackson to Watkins for short-term punt. It is so short-term for this 1 week in isolation, so that's my only worry. Like, yes, I do prefer Watkins for this week. Would I do it, though? No, I wouldn't. Cover that one. Start 2 of Enzo, João Pedro, and Konsa. I personally would go Konsa and João Pedro myself. Pedro to Gakpo / Wood, or Wan-Bissaka to Robinson or Hall. I think I would prefer to do Wan-Bissaka to Lewis Hall. Wan-Bissaka to Lewis Hall for me. Ryan saying Isak captain instead of Salah. Now look, let's get... I'm really intrigued to see who is everyone's captain. Who is your game week 20 captain? Salah. Mine just went completely blank there. Isak. Haaland. I'll put other. And if you vote for other, just let me know in the chat who you are tempted by. Comment there. Look, I'm still very, very bullish on Mo Salah, but I get it. Obviously, the game could get postponed. For those that are wondering, there is the potential of it getting postponed, and the news that Spurs have basically been decimated with injuries and potential sickness bug. So we need to take that into account. But look, for me, I still see no reason not to go Mo Salah this week. Still see no reason not to. He is still the boy. And I think it would take a very brave manager to go against that. Just checking to see if my football match is still on or not. Can't see anything yet. Does anyone else play football in the chat? Let me know. Do you actually play football yourselves? Let me know. Samed, it's no worries at all, my friend. No worries at all. Start Hall or Munoz. I would go for Hall, just based on what we're seeing. Son to Gordon and Mikalenko and Trent for a hit. So Son to Gordon and Mikalenko to Trent for a hit. So, look, are you going to get that paid back this game week in isolation? Maybe not. But I think long-term, those are brilliant moves. Yes. So I would like that move. The one thing I will say is you are selling someone like Mikalenko, who will have a double game week in 24 or 25 potentially. So you also need to be aware of that. You are selling, and you're also taking a big upgrade in that defence. But I don't mind it either. Chris saying, would you sell Raya and Enzo for Sells and Eze for a -8? I have triple. I'm going to already say no. Very few players ever are worth a -8. And the players that are in this combination right now just aren't. They just aren't. So no. As of right now, that is not worth a -8. Enzo or Hall to start? I would go Hall. Killcheck saying, well, I capped Palmer last week, so lesson learned. Yeah, that was painful. It's all hindsight in fantasy. I'm not going to sit here and be like, anyone made the wrong move, because I absolutely get it with Cole Palmer, and he put up okay numbers against Ipswich, like 0.74 expected goal involvement compared to Salah's. I mean, look, 2.06 is huge. It's huge. And while he's putting these numbers up, I have no reason to go against Mo Salah. And I think this is the thing we need to learn right now is he's just in unbelievable form. Now, will he have a blank? 1 million billion percent. Like, there is no world a player can continue this. Like, I know people are saying, blah, 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 blah. I mean, do you remember Erling Haaland in the first 4 weeks? Everyone said how he's going to score a hat-trick every week. Yes, I know the team's dropped off, but Salah cannot continue this. I'm just going to put it out there. He cannot continue this. Will he drop off and still be phenomenal? Yes, obviously. Like, even if he drops off, he's still going to get like 8 pointers a week. So it's not like, but this output cannot continue because he is so overperforming. It's mental. Like, according to Fantasy, his expected goal involvement is 18.9 for the season so far. And he's had 30 goal involvements. So he's literally like massively over, like 11 over his expected. So it will come a time. Will it be this week? Probably not. So I just said, yep, I played this morning. What? No, you must be another place in the world. Does anyone know if there really is a chance if the game gets cancelled? Look, with it, it's a case of I don't think we should panic about it. If there's big snowfall, then yes, it's not the game that's at risk. It's the spectators travelling to the game, which will be the issue, basically. Hey, Nacho, morning from Durban, SA. I'm guessing is that South Africa? I apologise. My geography is so bad, so I apologise. You reckon Diaz could start? Yeah, Rory. If I own Diaz, I would 100% start him. You obviously are taking that risk with Luis Diaz regarding is he going to start each and every game week? But as of right now, I 100% will start him, and I'll be surprised if he was benched. Big Man Aaron saying, Strand, Pedro, and Hall on my bench. Do I boost? No. There will be better times to bench boost 100%. Stefan saying, who to buy for next three? Eze, Sarr, or Savio? So I personally wouldn't go Savio, but I do think he could have a fantastic week this week. Look, I still haven't seen enough from Eze to justify paying the additional over Ismaila Sarr. With that said, do I think Eze is a better player than Sarr? Yes, I do. Hence why these things can swing at any moment. I think I still would go for Sarr, but would I be surprised in 3 weeks' time if Eze just starts to be the player that we know he is? No, I wouldn't either, because there is pedigree there. Pedro de Gakpo would, or Wan-Bissaka have covered that one off. Farag saying, best goalkeeper in the long run. I have Verbruggen and Fabianski, 3.5 million in the bank. Other than Alisson, I have triple Liverpool, and I have Gabriel planning to get Forest defenders soon. Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of the fixtures coming up, so Pickford is fine. I think they're playing against very tough teams offensively, so I'm not expecting loads of clean sheets, but he will have the double potentially in 24 or 25. So Pickford is quite a tasty pick. You said you got triple Liverpool, so you can't go Alisson. Again, potential team that will double in 24 or 25. So outside of that for defences, and it's worth noting, I've got this filtered by attack rather than defence. So in terms of defence difficulty, Forest aren't great, are they, with the fixtures, but they are just great in most games. So I think if I was buying right now, I would be tempted by Pickford just because of that impending double at some point. Outside of that, I don't think you can go too far wrong with Henderson as a pick. Otherwise, I'm not loving a lot outside of that. Do you think Salah will get more than 330 points this season? Yes. Now, of course, we got to caveat that by injury and things like that. But as of right now, 330 is definitely on the cards. Definitely on the cards. I think that's probably like where he will be. I don't think he'll hit like 360, 370. But he's currently at, is it 202 he's at? I think based on what he's got left, yes, I think 330 probably is the cap at where he'll hit. Elliot saying start one of Munoz, Ahmad or Mikalenko. I mean, for me, it probably would be Munoz. It would be Munoz. Mustafa saying hi there. Foutface, KDB and Cunha to Trent, Gordon, Raul will have enough to do it, or just KDB and Cunha to Gordon and Raul. Okay, so your other debate is doing Foutface to Trent, but you already have defensively Gabriel, Hall and Robinson, which are fantastic. Of course, you would then have to bench one of those this week, which probably would be Hall, controversially. So I don't think you have to make those moves. I think KDB and Cunha to Gordon and Raul are decent moves. I think Raul's good. My problem, there will be rotation with Raul, so you just need to take that into consideration with your moves. Sorry, my phone is popping, so I'm just making sure that is not fantasy related before anything else. Sorry, I was just seeing if there's anything fantasy related right now going around. Don't think there is. No, I don't think there is. Vignesh is, let me put my team up there. Vignesh is saying, one free transfer, Timber to Castagna or roll and play with Munoz. Oh. I just think Timber is going to be a great pick from next week onwards. So I think, again, it's a little bit of a luxury move. And Castagna this week looks great, but Ipswich can cause problems. I probably would just roll that transfer and play Munoz. Ben, Pedro to Gap. I think I've covered that one. Do I start Digne against Leicester or Sarr against Chelsea? Wow. What has Digne's minutes been like? I do apologise. Digne has never been on the cards for me this season. Minutes have been great. I think with Digne, I think I always would lean towards him. He's one of the few defenders that I probably would lean towards. But Ismaila Sarr, I think, will have joy against Chelsea at times. But I feel like Digne could have like that double-digit return with the clean sheet and possible attack and return. Jonah saying, hey, Nacho, me again. Start Pedro or Lewis? I would start. Ooh. I'll be so tempted to start Lewis this week. I really would be tempted to start Lewis because I think West Ham are woeful. Should I take a -4, Cunha to Wood and McNeil to Murphy? How's the rest of your squad looking? Because I think just Cunha to Wood could be enough, really. Brangers are saying, who would you bench? Aina, Gabriel, Konsa, Kirkes, Robinson. Well, I think if you have to pick a 3, it would be Gabriel, Konsa, and Robinson. Palmer, Salah, Martinelli would have to start alongside Sarr, and I would start Pedro over Strand Larsen probably. And so I'd bench. I definitely would bench probably Aina this week in Kirkes. Start Robinson, Konsa, and Gabriel, and then bench Strand Larsen because he's not a penalty taker, I don't think. Which one do I bench? Hall, Robinson, and Munoz. I probably would bench, of that lot, Munoz. Digne Konsa for 4 game weeks. I've got to go back to it because I don't actually know Digne's price. I'm so out of the loop. I never considered these boys because they are pretty woeful defensively. Look, because Digne's minutes have been solid, I probably would say Digne if you can afford it, but 0.2 in it and you know you're getting a rock. in terms of minutes with Konsa. So I prefer Digne, but, you know, if you are scared of minutes, just go Konsa and be done with it. Vardiel, Gabriel, Kirkes, Trent as my back four. Should Hall be in there? Well, if you have Vardiel, you have to start him. You have to start Gabriel. You have to start Trent. And Kirkes has got a brilliant fixture. I mean, I probably would play all of those over Hall. So I agree. Add to Gordon for a -4 or roll and start Hall/Munoz. Oh my God, no. I mean, Gordon is fantastic this week, but for a -4, I don't love it. I would roll and I probably would start Lewis Hall. Colwill to Hall this week or next? I mean, do I prefer Hall this week? Yes. But then Chelsea have got a favourable fixture next week. It's not favourable, but the next two are okay. So I would probably just wait a week and roll. Mitchell saying, hey man, Solanke out for Gabriel Jesus. Defence isn't the best. Midfield is pretty template. I think it comes down to your situation. If you got one free transfer available, I'll probably just keep Solanke and go next week with a move. I don't think Jesus is a desperate buy this week. If not Raul, who would you recommend to get alongside with Gordon other than strikers of Jackson and Isak? Look, I think if you're really looking at that price bracket, then it probably would be Raul Jimenez, yes. But you know you're always taking a slight risk with those minutes. That is the only issue. I think that's the only concern. Right, guys, I do apologise, but I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. I do have to get going, which is a bit annoying. I couldn't go as long as I usually do. This is the team. I'm locked in. I see nothing that's going to change. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it could get a green arrow, but we'll see. Captaincy on Mo Salah, Vice on Isak. I'm going to start Bruno Fernandes over João Pedro just for my own thought process. I'm happy with that. Either way, I got to play an attacker against my defender. And I just feel like Liverpool might give a bit more than that of Arsenal, even though Brighton are the ones with the home game. While Welbeck's out, I think they are a pretty poor team, Brighton. So that's the team. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to have to wrap it up here. Have an amazing game week, guys. Take care. And I will see you in the next one, which will be maybe midweek next week because, of course, we've got the FA Cup. Good luck, everyone. Make sure you check out the other content creators. There's loads live right now. And have an amazing weekend. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.